I move that the question be now put.
I'll call Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to respond to the comments from the member for Auckland Central. I have never heard such self-righteous cant in the last 2 years in this House as we heard from Nikki Kay in this debate. She didn't so much wrap herself in the flag, she wrapped herself in an all-black jersey. In her enthusiasm, sir, to try and accuse the Labour members in this House of not supporting the Rugby World Cup, of not even liking rugby, of being unpatriotic. How pathetic. The members on the government benches, sir, are so threatened by the fact that opposition members would dare to criticise one part of this bill. And I want to emphasise that it's one part of this bill. We have made it crystal clear in Select Committee, in public statements and in the entirety of this debate so far that we are voting for every part of the bill bar one. And we've made that clear in the first reading, in the second reading and the entirety of the committee stages to date. We support this bill. We support the Rugby World Cup, and any attempt to make this an argument about patriotism, whether we support rugby, whether we support the Rugby World Cup, is an absolute nonsense. And the member for Auckland Central, sir, should know better. The member for Auckland Central said that it was embarrassing to see Labour make all these criticisms of the Murray-McCulley provisions in this bill. And she asked, sir, why Labour hasn't put up a minority report. Well, Nikki Kay should ask herself, actually, why any member of the opposition wouldn't put up a minority report, sir, and it's because the members on the government benches are making a habit of voting down and rejecting minority reports.
That's true.
It is absolutely true. We've seen it in the Law and Order Committee, and now we're seeing it in other committees too. And the government are so defensive, they're so insecure, they cannot brook any dissent from the opposition in the form of minority reports, which, after all, is a mechanism that this House has developed over many years to allow the opposition to have their say, to have a dissenting opinion. And in this case, we're only talking about one part out of how many parts are in this bill? 7 parts. So Labour's made it clear we're only opposing one part, and yet the member for Auckland Central cannot tolerate the slightest bit of criticism of her bill without going into paroxysms of outrage and self-righteousness by suggesting that Labour doesn't support the Rugby World Cup. Well, I say to the members opposite, listen to what the opposition is saying. We are opposing the granting of unfettered powers to the Rugby World Cup Minister to override the recommendations of eminent specialists that have been recruited into the roles to administer the Rugby World Cup Authority. We think that's undemocratic, and we're saying so. And that is a perfectly justified opinion, and the members opposite should take a deep breath and recognise that this is a debating chamber. This is where we carry out the democracy of our country, we scrutinise legislation. And that's what this debate's all about. So I'm glad to see that the members opposite have subsided, that their outrage seems to have dissipated, and we can get on with debating part 2 of this bill. Now, sir, the Select Committee very usefully clarified some points in relation to the powers of the Rugby World Cup Authority and made it absolutely explicit in the bill that any powers that are exercised by the relevant statutory bodies that will be carrying out the granting of liquor licensing, the considering and issuing of consents, that the same powers would carry across to the Rugby World Cup. So there's absolutely no doubt about that. And sir, that the powers of the authority, which are contained in Part 2 of the bill, that is a very, very useful amendment. The part also deals with the role of the Administrative Secretariat, and my colleagues have already made the point very clearly that we are entirely happy with the powers of the Administrative Secretariat. It has been thoughtfully and usefully put together, sir, and a number of useful amendments.
Paul John.